You know that old saying about the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now? Well, that actually applies to running. And if for some strange reason you have stumbled across this YouTube channel and you're not already a runner, but you're also thinking of starting, this video is especially for you, because the other adage, it's better late than never, totally applies in this case. And in some cases, I'd say you're probably better off that you waited to start running. Let's get into it. What's up my friends, welcome back to the channel. It's Matt B and I review running shoes on YouTube, except when I don't. And when I don't, I talk about running. And today is one of those days. So I stumbled across an article in Canadian Running and it's titled, Why It's Never Too Late to Take Up Running. And I think this article is really good news for anyone that is perhaps getting started late, especially for the lot of you that might have started during the pandemic. And I've heard time and time again that I wish I had started sooner. But actually, it doesn't matter that you started later than you potentially could have, because in all likelihood, you're just as fit as someone that started 20 years before you. Or if you're not yet, you could be soon. Now, there was a study published in Frontiers of Physiology, and that study looked at 150 seasoned athletes. And these are seasoned endurance athletes. So they do what you and I do. Now, these athletes had an average age of 68, and the researchers divided this group into two. We had one group that had been exercising most of their life, and then we had another group that started exercising after the age of 50. Now, to add a little contrast to this, the researchers also added in 59 exercise-averse individuals, and they averaged 73 years old. So we're getting a good cross-section. Okay, so get this. We already said that both groups, the early starters and the late starters, are exercise enthusiasts, so they're all exercising about 5 to 6 days a week. But whether they started running at 18 or later in life, the runners had a similar body composition and leg muscle mass. So both groups had a similar lower body fat and higher leg lean muscle mass than the non-exercisers. So while it seems obvious that maybe starting exercising earlier in life may be better, maybe you can lead a healthier life, the point of this study is that you can make up the difference even if you start later in life. Like, you're not stuck always behind. You can pull right up with the athletes that have been running their entire life. That's good news. Also, as you and I know, and most everyone who is outside the running circle doesn't know, physical exercise, including running, actually plays a huge part in maintaining bone health. Well, not just bone health, but joint health. And it can help stave off things like osteoarthritis. In fact, it's been shown that being inactive can actually contribute to the onset of osteoarthritis. Okay, but not only are you going to catch up with runners that have started earlier in life, there's also a lot of advantages to being an older runner. And recently we've seen just a lot of athletes breaking records in their 30s and 40s. And this is probably because as runners age, they accumulate knowledge, like life knowledge. And that life knowledge can be transferred over into athletic performance. Older athletes, believe it or not, actually have better proprioception, and they're better able to exercise control and restraint, which is particularly handy in races. So an older runner isn't going to go out of the gate too fast, and by starting off just a little slower, they're going to be able to maintain an even pace. Now, the article does point out some pretty golden advice, and that's no matter when you start, whether it's younger or middle age or later, the very best way is to start slow and stay consistent. And again, that consistency is key in running success. Okay, so now we know that starting later in life, so past middle age, past 50, it really doesn't matter. Very quickly, you're going to catch up to people with fitness, with body composition, have been running much longer. Okay, but get this. Strava also has a wealth of information. A lot of you probably upload your runs to Strava. And get this, when we look at a whole, like all of Strava marathon runners, middle-aged men between 40 and 49 run an average marathon time of 4 hours and 17 minutes. Women of the same age bracket typically run just under 5 hours, and that's an average, right? That's pretty good. Now, female runners in their 20s typically average a minute slower throughout the marathon than female runners between 40 and 49. And for male runners in their 20s, their average marathon time is 2 minutes slower than the 40 to 49 age bracket. Now, that's pretty good. And if you are just getting started or you've been running for just a couple of years since the pandemic, I hope that pumps you up and gets you excited to get out the door and keep running, because you're better than all those 20-year-olds out there on average. Now, this probably comes down to runners in that age bracket having a little more time to train than runners in their 20s. In fact, if we look at that Strava data again, it looks like men in their 40s typically run about 28 miles a week, 3 months out from marathon race day, whereas runners in their 20s typically run about 24 miles a week, 3 months out from their marathon race day. Now, of course, 4 miles doesn't seem like it would make that big of a difference, but we're talking averages. And if we're talking averages, that's pretty big. Also, if you are a runner that has got started later in life, you are also more familiar with your body than athletes in their 20s. And by that, I mean you are more acutely aware of what your body is capable of. Older athletes, or people that get started later in life, are also more patient, so perhaps they're able to train more effectively, as in slowly build up, rather than wanting to hammer every workout and possibly get injured. Now, no one else is here for me to ask, but just using myself as an example, I actually think that I ran my best Boston Marathon ever at the 2024 race just a couple of weeks before filming this video. And it wasn't my fastest time. In fact, now I think about it, I think it was probably my slowest time, but I ran the most consistent effort. And because of that, I finished the race feeling fairly strong. And that, I think I will say now, comes with patience and knowing my body and knowing what my body is capable of. I think in truth it came down to not being confident on race day and just going out to have fun, but we don't have to talk about that side of it. I know in the past that I have run a lot of Boston marathons and a lot of races where I have just gone out and hammered it from the gun. And as we all know, that isn't the best way to race. In fact, that's probably the worst way to race. So I hope that as I get older, I start getting a little wiser. And even though at this point I have been running for a little while, I don't consider myself a new runner, I hope I can still benefit from the wisdom that my age has afforded me. What are your thoughts? I would love to hear from you. I'd love to, if you've been running for a little while, I would love to hear like how your perception of going out and racing has changed. Like, did you used to go out and just hammer it from the start? Or have you always just taken it easy, like started off slow and then picked up the pace as the race went on? Now, I'd really like to hear from runners that have just got started running in the last couple of years, because I would think that as a new runner, you're still like excited. And when you go to a race, you just want to go out and see what you can do and just hammer it from the start and just thrash it as far as you can. And if you make it to the end before you die, so much the better. And if you have made it to this point in the video, today I want you to drop the puzzle piece emoji. And the puzzle piece emoji is simply for the reason that if you're watching this video, it's likely you're a runner or you're active and you've realized that fitness, running or whatever is the missing piece. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been a video on why it's never too late to start running. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.